What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Right Mindset. I'm Thomas J. Bellezza, and today we are going to go over a word budget, but not just like, hey, how many words should go in a genre? It's not going to just be about how many words should you write. It's going to be a little bit more detailed now. We're going to show you how to look at word budget, but also how to ultimately edit your book and decide what stays and what doesn't stay, etc. etc. But before we get started, I guess let's wait for a couple people. My camera's not looking so sexy today, and I apologize for that. Let's see if I can fix that a little bit. That look better? Look a little warmer? Looks a little bit warmer. All right. Is it going out of blurry? No, it looks good. All right, whatever. All right. So before we get into it, like always, let's okay, full def, mirror, touch up my appearance. We'll see. No, doesn't look good. All right, welcome everybody. We're doing word counts. If you're just showing up now, we're going to talk about word budget, but not just for the genre. We're going to talk about how to edit a piece and how to decide what is worth your word budget. Again, as we go on, please ask any questions you want, whether it has to do with the topic we're talking about in this video, or if you have questions about your own book and writing in general. This series, this live series is all about you and helping you. But while we do this series, I also like to teach. And today is ultimately about word budgets. So let me get the screen up there. Share, because then it doesn't look great. Boop, 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 bing, bang, boom. All right. So word budget. Before we get into it, I guess I have to define and describe and explain what a word budget is and what we're talking about. Now, evening, flowers, evening. Welcome to the party. So if you haven't ever seen me talk about word budget before, let me explain it real quick. Word budget, when I talk about it, is because I come from the screenwriting world. That's where I kind of got my writing career strong and going. And ultimately, when you are writing, okay, every line costs money. Every character costs money. Everything. You count it by eighth of a page, all this stuff. So when I got into writing novels, I took this mentality to the page. Now, if you're going to write a standard 27 chapters with 3,000 words per chapter, right? So if we look at the math of that, 27 chapters times 3,000 words, you're going to get 81,000 words, right? So 81,000 words. And that's like a pretty tight standard book that you could write any genre in and not worry about it. But today is not necessarily about like how many words should be in an epic fantasy, how many words should be in a romance. But we're talking about what if my word budget was 81,000 words? Which brings us to the mentality. If every word or every line costs you money, in this case, your word budget, what stays and what goes? So in screenwriting, this is all for novels, by the way. If you're a novelist and you're writing books, it's all for novelists. But I'm trying to create the link, the simile. So if every line costs money, if the eighth of a page costs money, right? A lot of the times, the biggest notes we used to get in writing is ultimately like, do we need this character? Can't we just say this thing in less lines, or can't we just have this character say it, right? So it's all about like optimizing what's on the screen and optimizing the information that's presented. So with that said, I'm going to sort of like write out a scene, and then we're going to think about it, and this will help with pacing ideas. This will help with line editing, etc., right? So first, we're just going to write something, and it's going to be very generic because we want to build on it. So we're going to start small, and then we're going to grow, right? There's no outlining today, just writing. Okay. So, Craig, I don't know why I picked Craig. Craig is a hard name. I don't even think I spelt it right. I did. Okay. Craig left his keys in the car. He stopped halfway to the store and turned around. By the way, this is also another example of how you could start with a first draft or like a very sloppy, straightforward statement size passage and then build on it. But that's the whole point, is we're going to start with just getting the information out and then play with it. Okay. He stopped halfway to the store and turned around, heading to his car. Three men approached him wearing nice suits, and one carried a briefcase. I think that's one word. All right, so right off the bat, we just start off with that. Okay. So if I was like writing, this might be something that I wrote as a zero draft. And the reason I would do that is because I just got out all the information I need. I need the fact that he left his keys in his car, which would be the cause and effect on why he turns around and goes back to the car. And then I need to make sure that there are three men, and I have to make sure that they're carrying a suitcase. So this is what straightforward writing would look like. There's no style, no voice, nothing, right? So on the surface level, even though it's not pretty, I'm effectively using my word count. It's just like I wouldn't release it. Like, it's not nice. There's no voice, no nothing. So you got to add the voice. You got to add movement. You got to add logical narrative movement too, right? But what did this cost us? This cost us 32. There's 32 words. Okay. Is it 32 words? 30. Yeah, 32 words. All right. Craig left his keys in the car. Right. By the way, we want to show this, so we're going to spend word count on that, right? But this is where pacing comes in. You have to look at these beats and say to yourself, what needs immersion, okay, and what needs to be explained. What does that mean? Well, in layman's terms, sometimes we just need the character to go from the kitchen to the living room. Sometimes they just need to go through the door. We don't need to explain what the door framing looks like, or how they walk through the door, or the fact that they did go from the kitchen to the living room. Sometimes you could just be like, they entered the living room, or you could just have them sit down on the couch in the living room, right? And that's how you really control pacing. You have to think to yourself, where do I want the immersion to fit? And is it worth my word count? Because I have 81,000 words I'm playing with. That's just generic for anybody who's walking in right now and seeing what we're doing. We're talking about how to spend your word count and how to edit and how to fluff up. So I know that he needs, this is crucial information to the cause and effect. However, this might not be. We don't need to know that he turned around. We don't need that he stopped going to the store, but we could sort of play with that and kind of clean that up. I personally, right off the bat, would probably turn these into 3 beats, just right. Because, okay. Also heading to his car, right? Okay. All right, so let's look at this. Craig. Okay. So watch this. We know we need to include the store and all this stuff, right? So I could just go, yeah. Okay, we could just do this. Craig shut his car door and headed to the store, the grocery store. The deli. All right. So again, when you're writing your first draft, don't think about this. When you're writing your zero draft, don't think about this. But what I'm about to do is what you do when you're editing, when you're working on a second or third or even a fourth draft, okay? Right off the bat, Craig shut his car door and headed to the deli. How does that, is that worth my 81,000 words? Even if I go, the door slammed loud against the surrounding buildings of the city. All right. Okay. Oh, what we got? We got a question. I've outlined a novel and it sounds great, but when I write it, find myself wondering, do I go off outline? But my question is, how do I stick better to my outline? Oh, okay. All right. So you wrote an outline, it created a very specific story for you, and you're asking, how do you stick to it better instead of going off of it? Honestly, if you want to stick to an outline more so than not, it means going a little deeper into the outline. This is where you would create beats, movements. There's a couple videos that I have where I do it in real time, but I also have videos where I explain. You start off small with general summaries of like a chapter or a beat, and then you take that summary and you turned it into a chapter, and then you start outlining that chapter into movements and beats. And the more you do that and the more detailed you get, which is ultimately how I write a Zero Drift, you will find yourself sticking very strongly to an outline. However, I do recommend that as you are developing the story in long form, meaning you're going from the outline to the narrative, and you're working on the story, because remember, all narratives are made up of plot and story. Plot is what needs to happen no matter what. That's your outline. And then story is how it unfolds through the emotional experiences and choices of your characters, right? And that's the writing part. When you are working on the story, allow yourself to be malleable. If something feels right or the character choices are moving you in another direction, you always have the outline to sort of go to and adjust in bullet points where it's not too much work compared to, say, writing like 18 chapters and then going, how do I adjust this? So I recommend starting small with summaries, then breaking those summaries down into beats, and then taking those beats and figuring out what are chapters, and then outlining your chapters. That will keep you focused on your outline information. But again, I also recommend once you start actually writing, be comfortable, learn to be comfortable and malleable with allowing the story to sort of pull you in certain different directions. I know for a fact some of the best work that I've read from people, even my own work, you might get 3/4 into the book and realize, wow, there's so much I could seed because there's things I didn't really think about, and now they're coming to fruition, and I want to add them. And you know what? All I have to do is go back and seed that information and just add moments, or even just and really that's how you develop chapters you didn't think you needed, where you're just like, wow, this chapter changed the whole way I look at the book. So I'm a firm believer that if you stick to an outline rigidly, it'll be detrimental to your story. Okay, so I hope that helps. All right, moving back. Now the door slammed loud. Okay, so the car door slammed loud against the surrounding buildings of the city. You are absolutely welcome. All right, this feels more like I'm willing to spend my word count. Why? Because we are doing something here where it becomes immersion. We are doing a few things here. We are describing the surroundings, right? The plot is moving forward. There is a door. They are in a city, right? We're building the world. The only thing is, it's not from a POV of a character. So I might say, his door slammed loud against the surrounding buildings of the city. Craig, strolled with a deep whistle toward the deli. Okay. Now I can get rid of this. Okay. So now we're just creating movement, right? The logical narrative movement is door slammed loud against the surrounding buildings of the city. Craig strolled with a deep whistle towards the deli, right? You could even do this. His car slammed loud against the surrounding buildings. Okay, Craig strolled. We could say Craig strolled through the empty parking lot. All right. And then you could just say, I like with the, you could just go with whistling. Whistling, right? Whistling. All right. Whistling towards the deli. All right, now we're creating character, creating movement. So we're hitting some of the things that we need to with every sentence, and we're affording ourselves the word count. Now we had originally, I think it was 37 or something, but now we're at what, 55, right? But again, while you're editing, you can say to yourself, is this worth the word count? Am I spending my word count wisely? Well, if a sentence is doing more than one thing, or a passage is doing more than one thing, you know that you're finding some value in the word count and you're spending it wisely. But if it's just statements, or let's say, for example, here's something that where spending my word count inappropriately might happen. He stopped as he normally would a forgetful fella, fella in his 30s. The sky had a cloud to it and didn't really give him much hope in reaching the car and then back to the deli. Right? This kind of word count is really we're spending a lot of word count, and I would say almost on nothing. So we just spent 36 words on he stopped as he normally would, a forgetful fella in his 30s. First of all, I just like forgetful fella. That's funny. The sky had a cloud to it, or a dark cloud to it, and didn't really give him much hope in reaching the car, and then you could even say in reaching his car, and then back to the deli, right? I'm gonna just take away this thing. Okay, it doesn't do anything really. We're not really saying anything. This is an example of something is happening, but nothing is happening, and the reason is because it's not really through his POV or his emotional experience. Remember, story is through the emotional experience and choices of a character. So let's see if there's an experience here. He stopped as he normally would. That's exposition, right? We're being told about him. A forgetful fellow in his 30. This is not experience. The sky had a dark cloud to it. That's descriptive for descriptive sake, and didn't really give him much hope in reaching his car and then back to the deli. This is not him processing, so he's not experiencing anything. So this would be a clear example of me not utilizing my word count. I'm not necessarily doing anything, right? Then you might say to yourself, Thomas, and I'd be like, yes, right? And you go, well, Self, I want to create atmosphere. Well, if you're going to try to create atmosphere, you want to do it through the narrative movement of characters, okay? So his car slammed loud against the surrounding buildings of the city. Craig strolled, uncaring, the dark cloud above him. All right. And then we could he whistled through the empty parking lot. The pastrami sandwich. Danced in his belly, right? Okay, or his mind. Okay, whatever. We're just trying to get words out right now. Okay, did I spell that right? Pastrami. Who likes anyone here like pastrami? No, pastrami. All right. So now we created atmosphere. Now, right? Craig strolled, uncaring of the dark cloud above him. He whistled through the empty. Right. So now, by the way, strolled. I can actually do this. The dark cloud hovering above him. Okay. He whistled through the empty parking lot. So why did I take away uncaring? Because he whistled through the empty parking lot. That is showing that he doesn't care about the dark cloud. So I just saved myself some word count by creating movement through behavior. And now I don't need to tell. I don't need to tell the audience, hey, listen, he doesn't really care that the cloud is up there, because he's whistling through the empty parking lot. The pastrami sandwich, firm in his sights, right? Okay, so he's focused on getting his food. All right, now Craig left his keys in the car. This creates a new movement because it's going to change the direction, right? So, right, so I could even just go, Craig searched his deep pockets. All right, pockets for his wallet. Wallet. Found nothing but small bit. My keyboard is in front of my microphone, so sometimes I small bits of cotton, right? Okay, cotton or lint, right? Okay. He grabbed at another pocket. Then inside is his jacket. All right. He said, uh, looking around, or he said, heading back toward his car. All right. Now, by the way, his what are we gonna call his car? Let's call it a Lincoln Town car. Right? We'll give him an old person car. Okay. Why? Because you'll see. You'll see. Toward his Lincoln Town car. All right. I think town car. All right. So we did a couple things here. We instead of saying he forgot his car keys, right? We gave him a reason to search his pockets, which is to go after the wallet, right? And found nothing but small bits of lint, which made him search the next pocket. He grabbed at another pocket, then his inside jacket, and then he has an actual cause and effect reaction to it. Fuck, because I want my sandwich. I need my sandwich, right? And then this causes him to head back towards his Lincoln Town car. So the Lincoln Town car allows us to be a little bit more descriptive, and now we have a visual in our head. We've created cause and effect. So we are spending words, but as you can see, we're creating not only logical narrative movement, but we're creating cause and effect, and we're allowing sentences to have a little bit more weight to them instead of just being like he forgot his car keys, or or us telling like he was uncaring and had no concern about the clouds, right? And anything that we want to add to a sentence, this becomes a complex sentence because it's right, but it's not a dangling participle anyway. But you add the atmosphere through the movement of ideas or through the movement of characters. And as long as you're doing that, now it is through the experience of your characters, and it isn't description for description's sake, and it isn't necessarily exposition. I like character exposition, which is we're through the character's experience and we learn that he doesn't have the car keys. We learn through his experience that he has a Lincoln Town car, right? So instead of saying, uh, you know, his car door slammed loud against the surrounding buildings of the city. Craig strolled away from his Lincoln Town car that he's had since he was 32 years old. The car was lucky to him. It just kept, he had always felt safe, right? That's becoming exposition for exposition's sake, and it's not through character, right? But if maybe it is a lucky car to him, so maybe when he's talking to somebody, right, and somebody's drinking in the car, and he's like, no one drinks in my lucky car, right? And now we're learning that he thinks he creates a position. It's his lucky car. And that's how you also save word count, because sometimes instead of saying it's his lucky car, something he's had since he was 30, and right, you're now going to take it and make it a character moment. Somebody's trying to drink or eat in his car, and he goes, oh, no drinking or eating in my lucky car. Why is that more powerful? Because we have character development. We are creating positions. We are challenging those positions. We are letting behavior shine on the page. We are showing exposition instead of explaining things. And now we've earned that word count. Also, you can seed now. So we seeded that it's a lucky car. And then maybe later we could seed that he had the car since he was in his 30s. And maybe later we can seed whatever the case may be. Right? So whenever possible, try to filter the environment through the movement of the character's experience. For example, Craig strolled, the dark cloud hovering over, right? All right. He strolled. He whistled through the empty parking lot, the pastrami sandwich firm in his sights. Okay, so now we're creating atmosphere and environment. So instead of saying he whistled on his way to the deli. The parking lot was empty. Very few cars were there, and all he could think of was the pastrami sandwich. We just kind of streamline that into a very quick sentence. Now you might say, well, Thomas, I like to be a little bit more exposition-y. I like to be a little bit informative. I like to say things. So if you want to write more like R.R. Martin, okay, then you might write it like this. This is how R.R. Martin would write. The dark clouds formed in the winter sky. Winter sky, and claimed the weather tight. Weather tight to its cold embrace. Craig slammed. Craig slammed. Oh, Craig. Born of another era because he's older. Right? Slammed his car door. It burst out to the surrounding buildings of Westeron. Okay. A city, and then maybe be like, the city's still in turmoil. Turmoil after the Great War of 1962. Right? Okay. By the way, there's nothing wrong with writing like this. I'm just terminal? No, turmoil. How do you spell turmoil? Turmoil. I think it's like turmoil, like the word oil. Yeah, well, all great writers have great editors. Remember that. Anyway, so you can still do this, but if you're going to write like this and you're going to add like these sort of like asides, which again is right. If you notice, this also is very different from my writing. I like to write through the behavior of characters, but again, that's just a choice. It's a voice choice. If you're going to write more like exposition-y or descriptive or go into lore, you can do that, but you want to make sure that the sentences are moving with each other. So the dark clouds formed in the winter sky and claimed the weather tight, and its cold embrace. Right. So here I might add, Craig, to the dark cold formed in the winter sky and claimed the weather tight. Tight on Craig. Okay. It's cold embrace. Or I should say it's weather tight on Craig. It's cold embrace. Forcing him to tighten his jacket. Okay. Whatever the case may be. All right. Tight on him. And then you might say, who the hell is him? Well, because we're going to say Craig in the next sentence. Craig, born of another era, slammed his door, his Lincoln town car. Oh, slammed his car door. The Lincoln town car was known for its heavy doors and needed strength to shut. Right? Okay. Causing it to burst out against the surrounding buildings of Westeron, a city still, right? That might be something like that Martin would write, only because he likes to do the exposition, right? But as you can see, I kind of like to just sort of like have it move, there's more movement, whatever. And then you might say, Tom, where's the word count? Well, the dark cloud formed in the winter sky and claimed the weather tight on him. Its cold embrace forcing him to tighten his jacket. You could say to yourself, well, this is creating atmosphere. It's causing some behavior, right? Because he has to tighten his jacket, right? Okay, we're giving a little bit of detail. It's winter, okay? The clouds are forming, so a storm is coming. Craig, born of another era, slammed his car door. This aside creates a movement or flow, so maybe it's okay to have there, but in reality, it'd probably be stronger if Craig slammed his Lincoln town car door or slammed his car door, right? This seems like it's just extra information in my head, so I might take that out if I was editing it. So these are things you have to look for. Maybe your style is a little bit more straightforward. Maybe let's try a more straight. Well, all right. So maybe you're like a Brandon Sanderson, or it's like straightforward. Like you like to sort of just outright, yeah. Well, it was a cold and stormy night. Right? Okay. It was a cold and stormy night, and beyond the shiver of his lone walk from the car to the deli, he clasped himself tight within his winter jacket. Okay. This is also a choice of style. There's nothing wrong with writing like this, right? This is more like storytelling. Like it's more like, are you ready, kids? We are sitting around the campfire, and I want you to know it was a cold and stormy night. And beyond the shiver of his lone walk from the car to the deli, he clasped himself tight within his winter jacket. The streets of New York crowded in the distance, alive with cars, and conversation over the distant wonder of what could be. Right. Okay. Like you can write like there's nothing wrong with that. Like even the name of the wind and stuff like that is all there. See, Flowers knows what I'm talking about. So again, but still, when you edit something like this, you have to look at it like, are you doing something with each sentence? It was a cold and stormy night. Well, that's creating atmosphere. It is straightforward. What's the pacing? Well, the pacing's right to the point. I don't need to explain what makes it a cold and stormy night. However, I can choose. And I might have a full page. This is really where you have to look at it. And maybe my chapter is 4,200 words long. Okay. Which, by the way, if it's epic fantasy, not too bad. Okay. That's a thick chapter, but not too bad. Okay. And that would make me have to say, well, where can I cut? And I know that's a hard part for a lot of writers. It's like, where do I cut? Where do I cut? I have a word count. I'm trying to stay within X amount of words. Well, do I write, the clouds dark in the sky, filled with future rains and wispy thunders, right? Or do I write, it was a cold and stormy night, right? And that's where the editing and the word choice comes into hand. Like, this is description for description's sake. It does create an atmosphere, but the pacing becomes slow because you're describing something that isn't directly related to an experience. Whereas this, sure, it's not directly related to an experience. It does set up the atmosphere, but the next line goes right into an experience. And beyond the shiver of his lone walk, because now we are on an experience, okay, from the car to the deli, he clasped himself tight within his winter jacket. So now it's like, oh, all right. Instead of starting with the clouds dark in the sky, filled with future rains and wispy thunders, right? Could even go farther. Okay. He walked. He shivered in his lone walk from the car to the deli, clasping himself tight within his winter jacket. The streets of New York crowded in the distance. Live. Of course, this is a long sentence, but anyway, so I could do that too. But at the same time, if I wanted to create pacing and I wanted to save word count, this is what you would do. You would take, does this feel like description for description's sake? Is there a way I could seed this into the character's experiences? Is there a way I can just say it? Because it's sometimes, again, you just have to go from the living room to the kitchen. You just have to walk through the door. So it was a cold and stormy night. Might be, and again, I know that's a cliche. That's why I wrote it. That's why I wrote it. It's supposed to be funny. But it was a cold and stormy night. All right. It might just be what I need to get to the next part, which is that I have to show the character shivering and cold and all these other wonderful things. So, boo. Wait a minute. Okay. Sorry, people are commenting on something. All right. All right. With that said, does anyone have any questions about what I am talking about? Do you need clarification in anything that I mentioned? Do you agree or disagree with what I'm talking about? And also, how often have you started a story off with, "It was a cold and stormy night. The table, the floor is yours"? If you have questions, by the way, in general, this might be the time to do it. We did 35 minutes of this hoopla, which by the way, I love doing this stuff. So I'm going to give it to the floor. The floor is yours, people. If you have questions about your own stuff, let me know. Let me know. Let me know. Never. But have you? No. No, I have not. I have not ever started a story with, "It was a cold and stormy night." The most I think I ever did something like that. One of the first stories I ever wrote is about this guy Gallus. And good. I do like bringing in, I like grounding the reader in a very descriptive opening, but through the character. For example, that the first book I ever wrote, the guy was on a massive ship. He was sort of standing on the front, he's standing in the front, and the ship was big. It was massive, and it was cutting. So I described how it cut through the the ocean, but at the same time, I allowed how he didn't really budge from the movement of the ship or the rising of it. So like, I've always written through the experience of characters in a sense, but it did take me a long time to find my voice in general. But I would say that's the most I came to. It was a cold and stormy night, which is just describing the ocean, the weather, and then the ship. But then it was really how this character wasn't necessarily physically affected by the environment. They were just, my camera looks so weird. It's like really like, doesn't it look like I have a filter on? Look, I'm trying to look young. All right, I know I'm old. I'm old. Anyway, all right. If anyone doesn't have any questions, I'm here for your stories too. By the way, if you have questions about your story and your books and your ideas, just know I'm happy to give you advice today. By the way, you know what? You know what I could do? You know what I could do? Let's do this. Wait, I gotta adjust something, but then I'll show you something. Do you want to see something? Do you want to see something? I can show you something. Uno momento, por favor. 1 second. What is it? One. Oh no. Do 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 do. All right, let's do that. Let's see. The Lin. I'm just sunflower. I'm just changing some details real quick on a thing that, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you how to take a scene that doesn't have much happening and then build on it. It'll increase your word count, but at the same time, you'll see. You'll see. I'm changing a lot of the names because, it'd be unfair if I showed the name. All right. So let's show the screen. Boop. Is this 10? This might be too small for you guys, so let's make it a little bit bigger. It's all about size. All right. Oh, the cat's awake. You can come up here, right? All right. So, let's look at this this piece real quick. I'm gonna change the font and I hate when it does that, when you like move something over somewhere and you change the font, but then it keeps like the old font style on like certain things, like a comma or the things, whatever. I hate that. I just want you to know. All right, so if you read this, it's very straightforward. Let me know in the comments below. The comments in general. What are your thoughts on this just generalized kind of like piece? And then I'll show you something, okay? Okay. So feel free to give yourself a little read through. It's very quick. It's very quick. And enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. All right. And then by the way, the names are I just made them up right now, so ignore how silly they are. They are silly names, and I am aware. Anyway. All right. Let's see. I rewrote it, so I'm just looking at the just make sure the names are different. The names are different on here too. Drig. Who doesn't like a name like Drig? Drig. All right. Moving Atlantic Bay. Ophelia, Lindy, and the White Cats. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm assuming you read it. Okay. So when you're writing, like if this is a first chapter, which by the way, this is the opening to a first chapter. All right. So if it is a first chapter, just looking at it, this is an example of where things are happening, but nothing is really happening. Right. And when you're thinking about your word count, you have to remember that you need immersion. You need characters to be making choices. You need them to be processing things. You need them to be experiencing things. So if you're looking at what you're writing and it turns out it's just stuff happening, that is a sure sign that things are happening, but nothing is happening. Okay. So let's read it. Whatever's going down tonight, it's big. So that's the starting sentence. Right? Okay. I get it. All right. I'm trying to create a question, right? Whatever's going down tonight, it's big. Okay. Really big. All right. So now we know it's in first person because the narrative is through the main character and they have a dialogue without it being dialogue. With Lindy's sunflower gala far too close for comfort, Driggs says, I'll have long range backup, which is completely out of the ordinary. So this is exposition through narrative. This assignment is easily the most important one I've ever done. I just can't figure out why. Okay, more narrative, more exposition. Something has Drig rattled to his core, though he'd never admit that to anyone. This is more than him trying to one-up Lindy and the White Cats. This is personal. I've asked all of my contacts, and no one knows why the shipment's needs to be interrupted. Searching the empty, calm waters. Bite my lip. Adrenaline running. I think there should be a period here. Running. Something is on that boat, and it's not good. All right. So, right off the bat, there's no tension. There's no real stakes, right? We're talking about stakes, but we're not in stakes, right? There's no stakes physically. There's no tension, right? So as an exercise, which by the way I recommend everyone does, you gotta play, with things and try things and have fun with things. Okay, with that said, I took that same thing and I rewrote it. Okay, boop. All right. So right off the bat, the first thing that's going to happen is when it comes to is the line. Whatever's going down tonight, it's big, really big. Okay, we're on the gala, which is completely out of the ordinary, right? There's not a sense of place. We don't understand what's happening. We don't really feel physicality to the movement. It's okay to start off a chapter with dialogue. In fact, I highly recommend it. It's really good when that happens. Just from the dialogue, you have to create movement and place. And right now, there's no place and there's no movement. It's just we're not even in to the story yet, and it's just exposition. Okay? So, the blaring ship horns and the sound of the ocean lapping against the docks did not set me at ease. All right, so now we already created place. Under the night air and urgency forcing me here, something is going down tonight. Something big, really big. And with Lindy's sunflower gather far too close for comfort, Driggs says I'll have long-range backup. Right? Way out of the ordinary for him. Backup. I'm on my own tonight. Right? So it creates a position, creates a question of it. It allows them to process the information. I still added the details that they wanted to have in there, etc., etc. But at the same time, it is now the first passage is setting up place and movement. Okay. We know they're at a dock. They know that they're trying to figure something out, and they're creating the setup. All right. And then tonight's the night. I can't hesitate. Not for Drig. He needs me. So I'm not going to let him down. Wish I had a little more detail about the why. At the end of the day, this assignment is easily the most important one I've done. So I'm going to focus on that. Right? So we're creating position. There's a little bit of more subtext. We're not really stating things outright, even though this is easily the most important one I've done, but we're not saying compared to what or how it's the easiest one. We're setting up a conflict or an opposition to this. So this set up the position, right? That Drig needs this done. And then this is like, look, I'm going to do this, right? I have to do this for him. I'm not going to let him down, because if I let Drig down, then I'm doing wrong by him, all right? And then here comes the questioning and the concern, right? I wish I knew what has Drig rattled to his core. Not that he would ever admit it to me, right? And then that thought is happening while moving around the dock. The cold sting of the Atlantic Bay hovered over the wood, carrying with it a musty smell that stuck to the back of my throat with its salty hint of algae. And the reason you do this is because we're spending some word count, not only how they are reacting to the environment, but remember, immersion grounds you in the experience. So if you're the reader and you're just getting exposition for exposition's sake, right? It's just information being thrown at you. But if you break the information up and you seed it through a scene by filtering it through a surrounding experience, it allows the reader to absorb moments. So I wish I knew what has Drig rattled to his core. Not that he would ever admit it to me. Now I get to think about that while she moves around the dock and the cold sting of the Atlantic Bay hovering over the wood, carrying with it a must. So it's also creating a more sense of place, right? And then we continue on. This has to be more than him trying to one-up Lindy and the White Cats. It's something personal. So they are processing the information and the conflict in their head. They're wondering about it. They don't have the answers, but they're not necessarily informing the reader. There's still subtext and there's curiosity, right? Now we create some tension. Night guards move with their flashlights, checking every small sound. Who knew people actually cared about their job correctly? Stay smooth tonight, I reminded myself. So we created some personality, some voice. In the original version, there is no voice. There is no character voice. It's just statement, information. So now we have her critiquing on things. Wow, they're actually doing their job. Like, who knew people did that? Like, they're just security guards. Like, why would they care? But then we jump back to the other line from earlier. Even my contacts have no idea why this shipment needs to be interrupted. Biting my lip, I freeze, because it's supposed to be in present tense. I freeze against a stack of crates. The light of one of the guards cuts the corner edge, stopping only a blink away from my arm. I pull it closer to me and lean into the shadows. So we see her reacting to the tense situation. She almost gets caught, but also she is processing and reacting, cause and effect. There's behavior. There's movement to who she is as a person. Not only is she able to be in her head and think about things, but she's also able to, in real time, react to the change in her environment. And then she's paying attention to, instead of saying she heard, we just say their footsteps head off in the other direction. So that's another thing to remember when you're dealing with filter words. Instead of saying she saw, he saw, or whatever they came, felt, he heard. Whatever it is that they heard, they saw, just make that the sentence. So she heard their footsteps head off in the other direction can just be their footsteps head off. And that's also another way to save on word count. You just get rid of those he said, not he said, he saw, he heard, he felt, right? Because those are filter words. Sometimes saw and like if someone is watching somebody, that's deliberate. And that's a clear sign that it's not a filter word, as long as it's deliberately a choice, right? Okay. But he saw something is not the same as he looked or he watched or he gazed off or he glanced. Glance has a behavior to it, right? But saw doesn't have a behavior. Heard doesn't have a behavior to it, right? But wood cracked in the distance, snapping her to attention. That has behavior to it. Okay, snapped has a behavior, right? Okay, whatever, you got to think like that. So a filter word doesn't have a behavior to it. It's just sort of like information, and it distances you as a reader from. But that doesn't mean you can't. If you read successful books, there are plenty of books out there, plenty of books that have sold millions of copies where it says he saw, she heard, she felt. It is just a rule, and no matter what YouTube tells you, it is not something you have to stand. You don't have to be like, "Wow, it says you shouldn't do this." Anyway, something is on that boat, and it's not good. As you can see, I spent my word count building up the scene to do something very important. I gave it voice. I gave it place. I created stakes, tension, and the conflict is internal and external. She has an internal concern that she's going to fail her friend Drig, and she doesn't want to. She's going to do right by him or whoever. And then they also need to get to this thing. They're on the dock, and there's a chance they're going to get caught because there are guards. In the original piece, it doesn't do any of that. There's no right. There's no character voice. It's just statement after statement after statement. There's no dialogue, no nothing. It's just whatever's going down tonight is like it almost feels like 1920s. Whatever's going down tonight is big, really big. With Lindy's sunflower gallery far too close for comfort. Driggs says I'll have long range backup, which is completely out of the ordinary. Right? But again, when you read through it and you're trying to say to yourself, what do I cut? What do I add? Sometimes you got to add, which means in other places you got to cut. And it's okay. But just look at a sentence. Is it doing something? Is it through an experience of the character? Is it moving the plot forward? Is it adding any character development? Are we learning who the characters are, basically? Is it building on the world? Is it moving through logical narrative movement? Right? So whatever's going down tonight, it's big, really big. With Lindy's sunflower, this is just information. Nothing is moving. There's no narrative movement. So that means that this needs to be filtered through narrative movement for it to pull the reader through the moment. When a reader is being hit with just exposition with no narrative movement, it slows the pace. And even though technically if this was all movement and it was the same exact words, that would be considered quote unquote slower pace. But the way you write logical narrative movement creates a flow. And that's why you personally might read a book and the chapter is like maybe 10 pages long, but you read through it in one shot and you're like, wow, I thought I wasn't going to get through that. I thought I read so fast. And the reason is because logical narrative movement keeps momentum going, whereas exposition or stopping to pontificate, which is ultimately what's happening here, that slows us down, All right. Anyway, does anyone have any questions on this, or is it just rambling? am I rambling? Anyway, Flowers, you got questions? You just released no, your book is being released, right? I know I shared the link and I looked at it a little bit. It was very nice. I like your cover, by the way. It's very, very sexy. Anyone doesn't know, Flowers has a book, and it's always fun to read. It's always fun to read people's stuff. You know what I'm saying? I can't wait till I can order it. Is all I'm saying. I'm just little upset that I have to order it. No, I'm still here. Hello. Are you writing today, or are you just hanging out? You dancing? What's going on? What's going on? How's life? Oh, I know too. The cat's even asking. Meow. Anyway, I have been writing. Well, that's good. That's good. You need to be writing. You know what's that saying? You got to be writing. Are you still writing the book that you published, or are you writing a new book? Tomorrow's another day. Well, tomorrow we get to work on the sci-fi book in real time. I know too. My cat is crying for attention. Everyone, I have a cat. We are cat friendly here. She gets my attention first. That's the rules. A new one. Excellent. 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 Are you approaching this book differently than you approached the last one? Because of things you've been learning, or are you by the way, while I'm talking to flowers, if anyone has a question about writing, your needs as a writer, things you're confused about, or what we talked about today, please ask the question. This is where I give the floor to the viewer. I'll be happy to answer any questions. Definitely, definitely. Well, that makes me happy. That makes me really happy. We should get you on one of the sprints one day so we could talk, and then I could ask you questions, and you could tell me stuff like, well, your beard inspired me, but your writing techniques don't. Second guessing myself all the way. Look, I get it, especially when you're trying something new. If you're used to one way, but you feel like maybe it's stifling you, and you're like, I want to go another way. Now your brain is trying to make sense of it. So I get it. The beard is inspiring, I must say. I think if I were you, remember, you gotta kind of like hunker down and just try it. Just trust your gut instinct, right? Because I don't know if you've ever heard this term, but they write with confidence, right? And like on the page, you could see that they're making confident choices, and they aren't necessarily. There's a lot of lines that would be like seems or maybe or kind of or it appeared, right? That wouldn't be a confident writing. But if you approach a style and you just accept it and try to fail with that exception, that's a good start, because then you could always adjust, But it's hard to learn or commit to a new habit, especially when it comes to writing. If but remember, you could always ask me questions. You could always comment something. You could on the Facebook group, whatever. I'm writing as I listen. Have added a link. I think will catch someone's attention. Excellent. I appreciate that. What are you writing, Cindy? You having fun? What do you got? You doing fantasy, romance, thriller, crime? What are we doing? What kind of books are we writing out there? I don't know why it looks like I have a filter on my face. I'll just be honest with you. I'm very comfortable with how I look. I'm old and hairy. I get it. However, I do got a shirt on. If you don't know, this is a shirt that I designed so I could wear it when I'm writing, because this is what I say to my characters with that happiness. I'm like, you're going to die, because, I'll kill my main characters off. Anyway, this is in my store, just so you know, the Right Mindset store. Sometimes you got to wear the shirt when you're writing, or I have the cup version, because your characters need to know it's coming, and you got to be happy about it. Be like, hey, guess what today is? What, kitty cat? What? You want out? That's what I deal with all day. What we got? Romance and another fantasy with the Templar Knights. Excellent. And my mother's maiden name, Montgomery. I think I said that right. Montgomery. I hope I did. I'm really bad at reading. I have dyslexia. Everything looks like multiple letters. But that's awesome. Romance and fantasy and incorporating your mother's essence, basically, a piece of who she is into the stories. That's always great. I do that with my father. He's in a lot of the stories. You do look a little washed out today. It does appear as I know, right? Like it looks. I don't know what it is. I was on a meeting the other day. I got hired to. They want me to come and speak and tell people how to write at this school thing, and but on the internet. And something happened while I was on it. The video got weird, and then I reset it, and now I'm dealing with this weird response to it. Anyway, got several on the go. I mean, yeah, really. I mean, are you even a writer if you don't have 33 stories like in your head going? I know I'm working on one now, but and then like while you're writing it, you have like you'll reach this chapter and a character, and you'll be like, I have to have a story for this whole character. I love this. I do that all the time. I have so many stories that I love outlining, so I just outline ideas. Too, you can come over here, baby face. Yeah, I'm 47 in April, so it's coming. It's coming. I'm gonna be old. Now, what's interesting is when I was in my 20s and I met someone in their 40s and I was like, "You're old," right? And they're like, "You don't know what old is," right? And I'd be like, because I'd be like, "Oh, I feel like I'm 26. I'm getting old," and they'd be like, "I'm in my 40s. I'm super old." But then when you hit your 40s, you realize that's not that old because when you meet someone who's 60 something, they're super old. Come here. Come here. Come on. Come on. The cat just wants my attention. Too, you could come up here. You want to come up? Hmm? You want to come up? You're just gonna bother me the whole night? Okay. All right. Guess that's it. The cat wants my attention. I think we're done with questions, right? No one has any questions. Been doing this for an hour. That's not bad. I'm pretty excited about tomorrow. By the way, if anyone doesn't know, we are going to be doing we're going to continue the concept to completion. Where write a book with me, where we're writing a book in real time. You get to see the behind the scenes and how it works, and you get to learn a little bit about how the process is. My short stories usually lead me off to a novel idea, so I get the short stories or not novellas down, so they leave me alone. Thanks for the 60s. Sorry, I don't personally think 60 is old because I'm 47. I'm almost there. I'm getting there. My point was, the young think we're old, but in reality, like age is just a number. I feel like I'm 16. However, anyway, that's great though with the novellas and the short stories and how I got the foot out of my mouth by changing the topic to novellas. So, anyway, if you're just getting here, this video was about word count and how to edit and how to look at your sentences and what you're looking for when adding and subtracting words. So I highly recommend going back to the beginning and watching it from scratch if you're looking to find a new way to approach editing your works and trying to figure out what to put and what to take. But other than that, we're answering questions right now. If you have any questions about your writing process or what we talked about today or anything in general that has to do with the writing, and you just ask and I'll be happy to inform. I am a developmental editor and 20 years in the industry, 20 years plus. Oh Jesus. And I love answering questions, but I'll give it 2 more minutes. If I don't get another question, I'll call it a day. Because I still have to do my laundry. I have things I got to do, Wait. Maybe we need this. Here we go. There we go. Get some music on in the background. Do we got any questions? Does anyone have something to ask? I don't know, but it's starting to sound like I'm just sitting. I know there's 10 people watching because I can see the number. But at the same time, I'm happy to help. Oh, you want some dance pop? Everyone. Anyway, what we got here? Do you sing when you write? All the time. I will sing the dialogue. I will sing when I'm writing. Like, like if I was writing this, I would literally be like, the blaring ship horns and the sound of the ocean lapping. Like as I was writing it, I just, if you see me write in real time, like sometimes I'll talk while I'm writing and I'll be like getting into it. And I'm like, oh yes. And like that's how I write. But also I do it quietly depending. When you outline, do you write it, then enhance it to get the story down? Is it the same document? That's a great question. I've talked about this in massive detail, but I'll show you really quickly what I do. I start with the 27 plot point outline, and I will literally just write out a statement or a summary or a thought idea for each of the 27 plot point beats. And that might look like, Tom is working at his job as an accountant, right? And I might write, he loves his job, but wants better things. Okay. And then the next thing I would do is I would then take that and I would place it into basically like a brainstorming, or what we call it in the video, we call it extended outline. And what that does is I just take this and I start building on it. I literally will just go, Thomas is at his desk, right? And I build plot point beats like that, right? And I go, what is he doing at his desk? Maybe he's writing a story when he should be working. Okay. And then maybe the next beat is his boss comes in and asks him if he finished an account. Right? Anyway, so I would do that. But then I would take this and put it into a chapter, and then I would really get into details. I would start I just slowly but surely add a little at a time. So that is his desk in the back of an office, right? With one small window, right? And that's what I do. I try not to do a lot each time. I just do a little bit more each time. So this is a general gist. Then I write out the beats of what happens. His best friend asks him to come to dinner with him and his new girlfriend. Right? That's the first thing. I'm just plotting out ideas. I don't really put a lot of detail into it. But then once I put it, this would be in a chapter, its own document, to answer the other part of the question. They each get their own document. So this gets a document, the extended outline gets a document, and then each chapter gets its own document, just because it's easier for me. And I just build and build and build. Then once I'm ready to write in that outline for the chapter where Thomas is at his desk, I would create the scene in long form, and that becomes my zero draft, where I'm like, flickering light, pulsed, or whatever, flickering light pulsed against the bland white walls, haunting Thomas as he worked at his desk. Right? I might do that. Whatever. Yeah, I do have a video that shows this again in great detail. Any of the outlining video playlists, I have a whole playlist just called outlining. That whole playlist will show you variations of this. And then my live videos, like tomorrow at 2:00 Eastern Standard Time. That whole series, you can find that playlist. I'm writing a story from start to finish, and you'll see me do this entire process long form. I'm literally just writing a book how I would, and I'm showing everyone behind the scenes and then explaining the process and why I do it, and watching me make choices, watching me delete stuff, not necessarily delete stuff, but move stuff, how I add or subtract, or how like jokes turned into real great ideas for plot points. And then so that's a video you could probably definitely get video series that you get out. This whole channel is just dedicated to showing the process and not necessarily going 5 things your character make better characters. Characters need to have motivations. All right, next. Characters should have traits. And by the way, there's a sheet you could download in the file folder, and you with 1 million traits on it, and you could use it to figure out. But in reality, like what makes a character is their character arc. You know what I'm saying? Just figure out what they're going to do. Like, what do they want? You write it in a summary. Like, Thomas wants a better job. He loves his job as an accountant, but he wishes for better things. Maybe even one day to own, whatever. Hey, where is your girlfriend? Who? Who's my girlfriend? Rashab. I don't know. Where is your girlfriend? You mean the cat? Oh, the cat's running around. Two's hanging out. What was I saying? Oh, the arcs. Been down those holes. Yeah, there's just some videos. They just, good for them though. I get it. Sometimes that's all you really need. Some people just need that sort of like nudge. I'm teaching more practical things, because I'm a writing teacher. I had a theater and I used to teach writing there and stuff. But anyway, with character arcs, I just write out a summary of what is it? They love their job as an accountant, but he wants to do bigger and better things. Potentially, he wants to start his own firm. And then from there, as I'm mapping out the outline, I'm figuring out through the plot beats, and the rhythm, what their positions are. And then from there, I just challenge the positions. And then depending on how much they believe in a position, they will change slightly, somewhat, or they change slightly, completely, or not at all. And that helps me determine who a character is. But if you start thinking about like, what are their traits? They like the color purple. They're hard-headed. Like, that doesn't really serve the narrative as well as allowing the narrative beats and the movement of your narrative to formulate your characters. Not saying you can't fill out a sheet if that works for you. I'm just saying for me, I like to find the character, or quote unquote discover the character, through the movement of their arcs, and where it goes. I rarely ever have a character sheet. I'm not. I'll play Dungeons and Dragons. Don't get me wrong, but when I'm writing, I'm not like, they're a fighter and they're 5'2" and they have blue eyes and they like hopscotch and pickleball, and their mother is loving, but their father is God. I don't write that stuff, because while I'm working on the narrative, I might come to terms with like, maybe the mother is the one who got him into pickleball, and I'm okay with that choice. But if I think about that stuff beforehand, it sort of like influences the narrative. And I think you were asking before, like, how do you get stuck in an outline? If I think about those things, that gets me stuck in the outline, because I'm like, well, I have that the mother, didn't play pickleball. He just liked pickleball. Like, well, I'm messing it up. But in reality, if you just let the character arcs develop naturally, it will create deeply defined and dimensional characters, because they're making choices, they're being challenged on their positions, there's behavior, whatever, etc. Anyway, all right. I guess that's it. I guess call it a day, right? I did my final thoughts. Final countdown. All right. Is that it? All right, everyone. I'm gonna go. It's been an hour and 15 minutes. We had some fun. We had some good times. We had some great times. I'll see you tomorrow at 2 p.m. live. Be there, or be square, or round, or circular, or obtuse. Doesn't matter to me. I'm just happy that you're there, and let's write together and talk together and learn together and do all the things. As always, keep developing the right mindset. I'll see you next time. Bye. Love you. Bye bye.